people who want to go into radiology, that the future radiology is dead, caused the number of people who are developing a career in that field to decline. And so now look what happened. We need more radiologists than ever, and we don't have enough. The purpose of radiology is to help diagnose disease, work with patients, work with doctors, diagnose disease. They're able to admit more patients, study, do more scans, do a better job with health care. The hospitals are making more money. They notice that radiology department is doing incredibly well. They hire more radiologists so they can increase their revenues, take care of more patients. That flywheel is only sustainable if we have radiologists, software engineers. Somebody said that AI is going to destroy all of the software engineering jobs. Well, as it turns out, we now have agentic AI inside NVIDIA. It's everywhere. Every single software engineer is using it. And the one thing that you will observe, two things you observe. Number one, the software engineers that know how to work with AI are the most popular software engineers. The software engineers that know how to use AI, know how to use agentic systems, working with agentic systems, are the most popular and the most successful. Number two, the software engineers are busier than ever. And the reason for that is because back then, they used to have an idea and they would code it and it would take time to code. Now we have an idea, it takes no time to code. Now all of a sudden the company is waiting for you for the next idea. So you're in the critical path all the time. And so what we see is agents are contacting software engineers perpetually in text. What's the answer for my next thing? What's the answer? What do you want to do now? I just fixed that, what's next? Your agents are harassing you, micromanaging you, and you're busier than ever. And yet our company is able to do more. We're doing things faster. We're doing it at a larger scale. We're thinking about doing things that we never imagined. And so here's the flaw. The fundamental flaw, and it drives me nuts that it's not obvious. The fundamental flaw is that there are people who think that NVIDIA has to write, we have to code, pick our favorite number, 1 billion lines of code a year. That if we just finish coding 1 billion lines of code, job done. That's the definition of a year. And so if we have AI automate that 1 billion lines of code, and instead of having 10,000 people do it, it only takes 1,000 people to do it, all of a sudden 9,000 people are necessary. Well, it turns out 1 billion lines of code was all we could do with those many people in the time that we had. I have dreams to write 1 trillion lines of code. And so the fact that we now have AI assistants help us, we could explore more space, do better work, do things at a greater scale, do things more cost effectively, do things better. And so the jobs didn't disappear, the task was automated. Now, of course, there are some jobs and the task is exactly the same. And those jobs where the context doesn't matter, the world's always exactly the same, then I think those jobs will be affected. But it is very likely that overall, this is not even, with all technology evolutions, it's not even, but overall, my belief is, we're gonna create more jobs in the end. There'll be more people working at the end of this industrial revolution than at the beginning of it. Just like at the end of the last one, the beginning of this one.
I had a question later on workforce adaptation. I know you've done a lot of thinking about this as well. Do you want to just follow up on that, Ro?
I think Jensen's view of abundance in some ways is correct. Right? John Maynard Keynes had that famous article about how his grandchildren would only be working 15-hour work weeks. And he was right about the productivity increases and the increases in output But what he was wrong about is that people would not just be content with the life of a British nobleman. We wanted indoor plumbing. We wanted to be able to fly places. We wanted this thing called a smartphone. So it is true that human demand, human desire is proven to be infinite, which creates more jobs. The problem is when you look at the Industrial Revolution or you look at these technology eras, even if years later we end up with a lot of jobs, there have been massive times of inequality, massive times of job loss for the most vulnerable, massive times of workers not benefiting. And so my view is that what we need to do is think about how in the adoption phase, workers have ownership, workers have bargaining rights, workers have an ability to get some of the gains of the productivity, that it's not just going to the capital class, especially when AI is by definition capital biased, and that we're thinking about the entry-level folks and people whose jobs may be automated, and thinking smartly about how we adopt it so you don't have 4 million truck drivers out of work, or you don't have young people 3-4 years out of work. And that needs to be a concerted effort with government and business leaders, universities to do that. I don't view that as being an AI doomer. I'm not an AI accelerationist. I'm an AI democratist. I want this technology to work for everyone.
There's no question that bringing everybody along is really the single most important thing to do. And the fact of the matter is, it is unlikely most people will lose a job to AI. It is most likely that most people will lose a job to somebody who uses AI. And so we have to make sure that everybody uses AI. It is also the case, you hear many examples of this, where somebody used to be a carpenter, but because of AI, they're now an architect. You could describe things into AI, and it comes out with an incredible design, incredible draft. And they can be interior designers. And so they elevate their craft, they elevate their service, and elevate their business to a level to be able to offer more. And so I think that the first thing that we have to do, and you're exactly right, we have to make sure that people understand that AI is not this incredible technology that nobody knows how to use. AI is an incredible technology that everybody should know how to use. It's the reason why it's the fastest adopted technology in history, because it's so easy to use. And so we have to lower the barrier of it. We have to demystify it. We have to make sure that people aren't afraid of it, so that they take advantage of this tool to enlighten themselves, to enable themselves.
Okay, I want us to talk more about the impact of AI on certain sectors, the promise of AI. But before that, let's talk a little bit about the dangers. We know that this is a competitive space. We know that adversaries, potential enemies are adopting AI and applying it to warfare. And of course, there's going to be a desire to regulate it or to put guardrails in place. We saw this with the Anthropic Department of War kerfuffle, in recent weeks.
Kerfuffle is diplomatic for bullying by the Secretary of War.
Right. So, but when you signed a contract with the Department of War, what did you think it was for? Anyway, let's put that aside. So, of course, if you want to regulate something, you need all parties to the competition, and this is a competition, this technology, to sign up for it. Hey, I don't think what I would call the axis of aggressors, Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, I don't think they're going to sign up for whatever program we put into place. What, from your viewpoint, from a security perspective, an international security, a national security perspective, is sensible in terms of guidelines, protocols to cope with the misapplication, the dangerous application of artificial intelligence related technologies?
First of all, in my view, we need a combination of protected frontier models, but also open source. I mean, you have China having Quen, right? And Quen they don't have Quen's most sophisticated models being open source, but they have Quen, which is a cheaper model, being adopted. I don't want America not to have our models be a standard around
Adopted
the
in the
world.
world, across the world, yeah.
But you could have a standard that says if you use a certain amount of compute power for training, if you have a certain amount of power in terms of the use of a frontier model, then we're going to make sure it's regulated in terms of the export control, and not being open source, but we're still going to compete on certain open source models so that we still have American standards across the world and don't cede the market to China or to Quen or other models that they may come up with. And the second thing I would say is we shouldn't have a race to the bottom. When I think of American AI, I think American AI should be excellent AI. We should be the AI where when Europe buys it or Asia buys it, they know it's safe. They know that the agentic AI isn't going to do crazy things. They know that the agentic AI isn't going to engage in surveillance or violate privacies. That American AI is going to have American values. You know, when I was growing up, you used to buy American and you knew the stuff would work. And people would say, yeah, I want to buy American. That's what I want for AI. I want America to have the best, and that means having well-crafted regulations. It doesn't mean no regulations, but you know, all this idea, every time I get on a plane, I'm really glad we have regulations. You know, I don't want a world where we don't have regulations. And so we can have it for the FAA, if we can have it for nuclear energy, we should be able to have it for AI, but not in a way of stifling innovation, encouraging the standards for our AI to be the safest, the best, the least violating of privacy.
So, Jeff, I'd like you to maybe comment on this from the perspective of maybe what you see as dangers of overregulation as well. I mean, the European model doesn't seem to be working in terms of incentivizing the kind of innovation we see in this country. And then we had the Mythos issue the last couple days, 24 hours, I guess. Is that a concern for you, or do you think that in terms of regulation, or do you think this is the free market working? This is American ethics working in terms of the release of a tool that could readily and immediately identify zero-day vulnerabilities.
We should regulate applications as rigorously as we regulate applications today. Applications in industries and use cases. We have, and we just have to be mindful about premature regulation. And so you have to decide, and this is the wisdom and the judgment of different cultures. Some countries tends to regulate after something happens, and as they see something happen. Some countries tend to regulate before anything can possibly happen, and so they both have their risk. And you got to decide, what is the consequence you want to endure. Do you want your society and your culture to have absolutely no harm come to them, and therefore they take no risk at all, and the industry therefore is suffocated? Or do you want to take a little bit too much industry, got things to mop up? And I've just described, in fact, two different regions, not United States. The United States is still kind of somewhere in the middle, but two different countries that in two different regions that have different cultures that way. With respect to technology regulation, I think that whoever the country is that invented the technology, that owns the industry, has the right to decide whether they give their industry head start benefits. And the thing that you have to be mindful with head start benefits versus no access regulations is you have to think through the ramifications of your decision. It turns out that a lot of countries we depend on. It turns out, ASML is not an American country, not an American company. And it turns out just about every one of our energy sectors, every single one of our energy sectors rely deeply on technology and minerals and whatnot that comes from China. And so depending on what game we want to play, and we just have to realize, we're in an interdependent world. And when you're in an interdependent world and there's no absolutes, You know, this is like, we're not playing tic-tac-toe.
Yeah.
You know? The world is a lot more complicated than that. And when we want to simplify the world into, I'm going to keep everything to myself, I'm going to take my marbles home, you're not going to get any of it. You just got to be a little careful. They have some marbles too. And so in these interdependent worlds, having a big picture understanding of how the world and the systems work is helpful, number one. Number two, having maturity and balance, helpful. Having nuance, helpful. Having a long-term mindedness, helpful. And so these things ought to be taken into consideration, but the idea that I'm going to shut you off and expect that there's no repercussions is a bit naive.
So you're saying don't take the ready, fire, aim approach. You're saying it's better to think through the consequences. You know what
Unintended consequences is hard to extrapolate in technologies that are moving as fast as AI.
Well, and this is a big point on regulation, I think. You know, I think I've heard this metaphor before that trying to regulate AI is like trying to ask the Wright brothers to first develop the maintenance manual for 707 before they further develop the airplane. But there is a role certainly for government, as you mentioned, government working together with the private sector, and I would include academia here, the role of the university, which you mentioned as well. Guys, get both your kind of top level thoughts on how you see the role